Hello everybody, so welcome to any new people watching the videos, and welcome back to anyone who's been here before. Yeah, I'm Debbie and I read a lot of books. Today I've got an audio book. It's the final book, number 3, in the MaddAddam series by Margaret Atwood, which is called MaddAddam. There is the front cover. I do love the front cover, that when pigs can fly type situation going on. And the audiobook was read by MaddAddam, Bob Walter and Robbie Damond. So let's just get through that blurb for you. A man-made plague has swept the earth, but a small group survives along with the green-eyed Quakers, a gentle species bioengineered to replace humans. Toby, one-time member of the Gods Gardeners and expert in mushrooms and bees, is still in love with street-smart Zeb, who has an interesting past. The Quakers' reluctant prophet, Snowman the Jimmy, is hallucinating. Amanda is in shock from a paintballer attack, and Ivory Bill yearns for the provocative Swift Fox, who is flirting with Zeb. Meanwhile, giant pigeons and malevolent paintballers threaten to attack. So it's a duration of 13 hours and 21 minutes in literary, science and contemporary fiction, target audience adult. I do find it interesting that these 3 books have been banned in America. I don't know if they've been banned in the UK, I haven't looked into that, but mainly for the sexual content rather than anything else. I just don't even know how to begin. And I've already talked about 2 of them in a way. They're just really interesting books to try and explain, really. But the first 2 books kind of ran concurrently with each other. You were seeing the points of view of 2 different groups while this man-made plague was being created and what happened to them. And then this book takes place at basically the end of those books, where they come across kind of like a bonfire and some other people who have survived. And then you're also kind of looking back to the creation of the Gods Gardeners and the spa that Toby worked at in the flashbacks and the lead up of the last book. Doesn't make any sense at all. It's funny. This one, admittedly, the last one had more music. There were references to the Now We Sing moment, but there wasn't actually any music in this audiobook. And I just find it hilarious how things get changed, because obviously originally it was Jimmy who became the Snowman, which became Jimmy the Snowman, and now it's been reversed to Snowman the Jimmy. The Quakers are just, they're like babies. They know nothing. And so when you have like Toby and others telling these stories to the Quakers, and it's religious based, it's history based, but it's set in the future. There are times when you feel like you're reading something connected with like the beginning of the earth or beginning of Christianity and Catholicism and all of that. Like you're seeing the origins of a new religion essentially. So it's dystopian. It just feels very Margaret Atwood in the sense that, like with The Handmaid's Tale, for example, that's another one set in the future, but it took part of its futuristicness from things that happened in history. And it's quite similar with this, because it's with the man-made plague, which is very interesting to read after COVID, because I mean these books were released early 2010s. It says this audiobook was released in 2014, but that doesn't actually tell me when the first one actually came out. It would have been like 2002, 2003-ish, possibly, because it was shortlisted for prizes in 2003 and 2004. But yeah, it means that we're going back to like the year of the flood, which was the one before this, and you're also looking at things from Oryx and Crake as well. And they're still talking about Oryx and Crake in this one as well. Crake was Glenn, and Oryx, did we ever find out Oryx's real name? I cannot remember. And so we still get references to them, and then there's I feel like just so much happens. If you like your science fiction-y stuff, if you like your dystopias, if you like something with a bit of comedy, I think you'll enjoy this. And if you're basically a fan of Margaret Atwood in general, I think you'll enjoy these as well. I definitely understand the target audience, adult. I do think some older teenagers would get something out of these books, but there are some very silly things in regards to some of these sexual references, especially in relation to the Quakers who don't know anything. I did find that the section, which is people just telling stories to the Quakers, but they're just like, okay, so they're trying to explain something, like they can't use metaphors because then they have to break down the metaphor and what it means. And so I did find it quite funny. It's like, oh wait, no, this means Okay, and then this means so you're not actually hearing the interference from the Quakers in these stories, but you're hearing the speaker talk to the Quakers and trying to explain things. I can only imagine how frustrating that would have to be to explain every single thing to somebody, because the Quakers were created by Crake. That's why they're called the Quakers. Yeah. Would I call this like my favourite series of all time? No. Did I enjoy it? Yes. I found it very interesting to read. I found it very entertaining. I had its moments of being funny while also getting really, really weird vibes having lived through COVID. I just don't know how to describe it. How did I describe it in the other two books? I'm not completely sure. But yeah, so they're just trying to survive essentially after the plague has wiped everybody out. You're hearing more about what other people were doing during the time, which we mainly got out of the other two books, and then this one is just seeing everybody together since the events of the first two books, because as I said, the first two books kind of ran concurrently with each other, side by side, for them to meet and then be together in this one. Just the voice of MaddAddam throughout this book, playing all the females, I just think she was brilliant. And just the way she talked to the Quakers. I just found that a really, really good part of the story. Just hearing them trying to explain things to the Quakers. I really do think a lot of the comedy came through those sections of telling the Quakers the stories. And it also makes you think about religion in another way, in the idea that originally there were stories. They were told, not everything was real. A lot of them were fables. And you can see and hear how those stories and those fables became more fiction and less truth, because they're trying to explain it to a group of people that don't understand it. I mean, I know a lot of people will say that the Bible is like full truth, and it's just like, no, like there's elements of truth to it, but then there's also stories and things and fables and all sorts, just to kind of get the gist across. And I think a lot of people forget about that in religion. A lot of it was just like, no, this didn't actually happen. This is just something that we were told to make us behave. I listened to this on about 1/3 speed. Yeah, I do have a couple of other Margaret Atwood books that I'm waiting for. What was the other one that I was waiting for? There's Hagseed, Hogarth Shakespeare, Wilderness Tips, The Edible Woman, that sounds interesting. A Collection of a Lifetime called Dearly, that's an audiobook. The Heart Goes Last, that sounds interesting. And The Robber Bride. The Robber Bride is the one that I wanted to reserve, but and that's also voiced by MaddAddam, so I'll get to hear her voice again, so that'll be fun. And as I film this, it's the end of February, so it tells you how far in advance I film these. But yeah, it's good, it's funny, and I was greatly entertained by the audiobook. Some of the descriptions were just so hilarious, and just seeing the Quakers living and trying to understand, even though they don't, because most of it's done by just two of them, which I believe is MaddAddam and Bob Walter, and then Robbie Damon comes in towards the end playing a grown-up version of one of the little Quakers. It's called Blackbeard. Because everyone's just like, oh, like the pirate, and he's like, oh, what's the pirate? Through the other two voices of MaddAddam and Bob, you do hear about Blackbeard, but then towards the end he grows up and he has a chapter or two by himself. Apparently he's a voice actor. Played Sway in Nickelodeon's cartoon Breadwinners, and he also played the twins Evan and Miles on the Hub's Transformers Rescue Bot. He's also done the voices for The Dark Prophecy and The Hidden Oracle by Rick Riordan. If you hadn't noticed, I am still recovering from losing my voice. It's so much better, and I've had a singing lesson where she's just really focused on just trying to get my vocal cords back together again. I've got wonderful low notes at the moment, which had never been in me before, but I've completely lost my supported head voice area and the classical side to my voice, so I'm looking forward to getting that back. But I've got 2 weeks until my next actual singing lesson, and I think I've got, is it 2 weeks until choir? Yeah, 2 weeks until I'm next at choir, and then it's the week after that that I have some singing lessons, so I think that's enough time for my voice to fully recover and get it back again. I need to listen to Hit the Road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more, because I am on the top line for that one, and I need to make sure I've got my rhythms right in the second verse. Yeah, this has gone completely off track. But yeah, I just think the When Pigs Fly element of the front cover just brilliant. But yeah, I feel like I haven't said much about this one, but it is very much looking back to, because all of them have had flashbacks leading up to this moment where you're seeing these characters as survivors, and now you're seeing in this one flashbacks to the creation of the God's Gardeners, which is where Toby worked. But yeah, you just see them all together, and I just love the fact that Jimmy Snowman has become Snowman the Jimmy. Anytime they tried to put it the right way around, the Quakers would come back and go, no, it's Snowman the Jimmy, it's not Jimmy the Snowman, it's Snowman the Jimmy. So you just see everything just getting twisted on its head, and just trying to explain just essentially the universe and everything to the Quakers, and they have no idea what you're talking about. I just found that hilarious. Anyway, if anything I've said sounds like up your alley, it's MaddAddam, Margaret Atwood, book 3 of the MaddAddam series, which started with Oryx and Crake. Second one was Year of the Flood, and then the final and third, MaddAddam, Margaret Atwood. There you go. It's an interesting one, isn't it? But yeah, so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time with another video. Stay safe, my lovelies. Mwah. Bye! Meanwhile, giant pigeons and malevolent, that's a really hard word to say,